Let me share something with you that can shift the entire direction of your life. It's this: the size of your thinking determines the size of your life. It's not about where you came from. It's not about what school you went to. It's not about how much money your parents had. It's about how big you allow yourself to think. Most people live their lives trapped in a small box, not because of any physical barrier, but because of a mental one. It's their mindset that keeps them stuck, not the world. The moment you expand your thinking is the moment your life begins to expand with it. Have you ever noticed how two people can start with the same tools, the same resources, the same opportunities, but one ends up with a life of impact and abundance, while the other just gets by? The difference lies not in their circumstances, but in the scale of their thinking. One person looks at a job and says, "This will do." The other says, "How can I master this and multiply it?" One sees survival, the other sees strategy. One sees just enough, the other sees more than enough. It's not magic. It's mindset. Your mind is a garden. What you plant is what grows. Plant little thoughts, harvest little results. Plant bold, courageous, possibility-filled thoughts, and you will start to see new doors open. The average person has never been taught how to think on a higher level. They've been trained to think based on fear, based on limitation, based on what's realistic. But realistic is often just another word for small. I'm not saying ignore reality. I'm saying don't let reality be the ceiling of your imagination. Big things were never created by small thoughts. Every breakthrough began with someone thinking, "What if there's more?" You don't have to look far to find evidence of this. Look at the great businesses, the inventions, the people who reshaped industries and shifted cultures. None of them started with "let's just play it safe." They started with a thought that challenged the limits. What if we could make cars affordable for every family? What if we could hold 1,000 songs in our pocket? What if we could teach millions with nothing but a camera and an internet connection? It always starts with a thought. But not just any thought, a bigger one. And the beautiful part is, no one has a monopoly on thinking big. It doesn't cost a dime to expand your vision. No one's stopping you from thinking larger, except maybe you. Maybe you've been told your whole life to stay humble, stay quiet, stay small. But humility doesn't mean invisibility. It means knowing your value and serving others with it, and staying small doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help your family. It doesn't help your community. And it certainly doesn't help you fulfill your potential. There's a question I like to ask myself regularly. If I were thinking 10 times bigger, what would I do differently? That question alone can stretch you. Because the moment you ask it, you begin to realize all the little ways you've been playing it safe. You see the hesitations, the delays, the rationalizations you've been using to justify a smaller life. But when you think bigger, something happens inside you. You start to feel uncomfortable with average. Mediocrity no longer satisfies. You become aware of your own untapped capacity. And with bigger thinking comes new problems, yes, but also new solutions. That's the thing most people don't realize. Big thinking doesn't just create big dreams. It creates better thinking. It forces your brain to find better answers. You ask better questions, and that leads to better plans. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "How can I create the value that allows me to afford anything I need?" You stop asking, "Will I ever be successful?" and start asking, How can I bring massive value to more people faster and with excellence? You stop limiting yourself to what is and begin to create what could be. Small thinking is comfortable, it's familiar, it's safe, but it's also crowded. There's a lot of competition down there. Everyone's trying to do the minimum. Everyone's trying to just get by. You want to separate yourself from the crowd. Think bigger, aim higher. While others are looking for the next opportunity, you're creating one. While others are hoping for a raise, you're building an enterprise. While others are watching the clock, you're building something that makes the clock irrelevant. Don't just look around you, look within you. What ideas have you buried because you thought they were too much? What dreams have you delayed because they didn't seem realistic? What projects have you parked because someone else couldn't see the vision? You weren't meant to think small. There's a reason your imagination exists. It's a gift, not a toy, and it works best when you dare to use it fully. The world doesn't need more cautious thinkers. It needs people willing to see beyond the current moment. People who can imagine more, create more, become more, and you can be one of them, not someday, now. Speed is not just a tool anymore. It's a necessity. In this age, you can't afford to wait 5 years to start moving. Waiting is expensive. Delaying your decisions can cost you opportunities, connections, momentum, and even confidence. Too many people are sitting on good ideas, great plans, powerful goals, but they never get past the drawing board. They wait for perfect timing. They wait for all the green lights. They wait until they feel ready. But life doesn't reward the waiters. It rewards the doers. Action changes everything. When I started learning the value of moving quickly, my whole philosophy changed. I realized that life doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to show up. It asks you to try, to test, to learn, and then to go again. The mistake most people make is thinking they need to have it all figured out before they begin. But that's not how progress works. Progress is built through movement. You try something, you mess it up, you fix it, you learn something new, and you try again. That's how growth happens. You don't learn by standing still. You learn by moving forward. The problem with waiting too long is that you start to believe your own hesitation. Delay creates doubt. You keep pushing back that dream one more day, one more week, one more year. And after a while, you stop believing you'll ever do it. And that doubt becomes a habit. It becomes the way you think. It becomes your identity. But the good news is, you can flip the switch any time you decide to move. Action is the cure for doubt. When you move, even if it's clumsy or awkward, you create energy. You activate belief. You shift your mindset from someday to right now. There's something powerful that happens when you decide not to wait anymore. When you make the move, even if it's small, you feel a surge of control. You realize you're not stuck. You're not trapped. You're just paused. And you have the power to unpause anytime you choose. That's what separates those who create momentum from those who only dream of it. The ones who move quickly understand that the clock is always ticking. They know they don't have forever, and they don't waste time acting like they do. They take risks, they stumble, they correct, but most importantly, they start. Now, I'm not saying to be reckless. I'm saying to be decisive. There's a big difference. Reckless people jump without thinking. Decisive people think and then jump. They don't wait for guarantees. They don't need every answer. They act on what they know now, and they improve as they go. That's how all successful people operate. They act fast on the important, and they don't get stuck on the trivial. They've learned that it's better to make a wrong move and learn than to make no move and rot. Speed also multiplies your learning. When you move quickly, you fail faster. And that's a good thing, because failure is not your enemy, delay is. If you fail today, you can recover tomorrow. But if you delay for 6 months, you don't get that time back. Every day you wait is a day you could have been building. Every hour you hesitate is an hour you could have been improving. Fast movers don't just win because they're smarter. They win because they give themselves more chances. They try more ideas, they meet more people, they test more strategies, and all that extra motion compounds into progress. If you want to create a new chapter in your life, you can't write it in theory, you have to write it in action. Big thinkers know this. They don't sit around polishing their plans forever. They understand that the market rewards execution, not just imagination. And they're willing to be uncomfortable. They're willing to launch when it's not perfect. They're willing to show up before they feel fully confident. Because they know confidence doesn't come before action, it comes because of it. You'll never know how strong you are until you move. You'll never know how far you can go until you start walking. The view doesn't change if you stay in the same spot. So many people live on Someday Island, always planning, always preparing, always promising themselves they'll do it soon. But soon becomes never. You don't need another month to think about it. You don't need another video to inspire you. What you need is motion. Just take the next step, even if it's a small one. Write the first page. Send the first email. Make the first call. Begin where you are with what you have. The fastest way to shorten the distance between where you are and where you want to be is to move. One of the great mistakes people make is majoring in minor things. They spend so much of their precious time and energy on the things that don't move the needle. They become experts in the unimportant. They memorize facts that don't serve their goals. They obsess over details that don't change their future. And then they wonder why progress feels slow or why success always seems out of reach. The truth is, your life reflects what you focus on. If you spend your life focusing on trivia, don't expect to build a legacy. You can be incredibly busy and still be going nowhere. Busyness is not the same as progress. Activity is not the same as accomplishment. It's possible to run in circles for years, working hard, staying up late, answering emails, putting out fires, and still not be building anything meaningful. If what you're working on every day isn't tied directly to your long-term vision, your energy is being misused. And energy is one of the most expensive resources you've got. Once it's spent on the wrong things, you don't get it back. That's why clarity is so important. You've got to know what matters most. The world is full of distractions. They come dressed in urgency, they sound important, they even feel necessary, but many of them are just noise. You get a notification, a message, a request, a favor, and before you know it, an hour's gone, half a day's gone, a week is gone. And what did it produce? Did it bring you closer to your vision? Did it make you sharper, stronger, more aligned? Or did it just keep you busy? You've got to get honest with yourself about how much time you're spending reacting instead of building. When your day is run by what shows up instead of what you decide, you end up living someone else's plan. There's a difference between being available and being intentional. The more successful you become, the more demands will be made on your time. People will want your attention, your advice, your approval. And if you say yes to everything, you'll end up saying no to the things that matter most. You can't afford to be driven by guilt or by the fear of missing out. You've got to protect your priorities like a lion protects its territory. Not everything deserves a response. Not everything is your responsibility. The moment you start choosing your tasks based on impact rather than pressure, you'll notice your life starts to shift. A lot of people think they're being productive because they're exhausted at the end of the day. But exhaustion is not the same as effectiveness. You can burn yourself out doing things that don't build anything. You can fill your calendar and still empty your purpose. That's why you have to ask yourself regularly, is this helping me grow? Is this taking me where I want to go? Is this aligned with who I want to become? If the answer is no, it doesn't matter how urgent it seems. If it's not essential, it's excess. One of the most powerful disciplines you can develop is the ability to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. When you're clear on your vision, decision-making becomes easier. You don't need to weigh every option. You just measure it against your mission. If it fits, you do it. If it doesn't, you pass. It's not personal. It's strategic. You've got to be ruthless with your focus, because every time you choose the minor over the major, you're telling your life what you value. And your life is always listening. There's a phrase I've used for years. Don't get caught in the thick of thin things. That means don't spend your time and talent on things that look big but produce little. Don't waste your energy on arguments that won't matter in 5 days, let alone 5 years. Don't spend your best hours on entertainment and then complain about your lack of progress. Life is a trade. Every minute you give to something is a minute you can't give to something else. So make sure you're trading up, not down. Your goals don't need more time, they need more focus. They need more priority. They need more of your best hours, not your leftovers. If you can identify the 3 most important things you can do every day to move your life forward and actually commit to them, everything else starts to fall into place. You start seeing results. You start building momentum. You start living with intention instead of default. And that alone can create a level of growth that surprises even you. You can't build a masterpiece by scattering your effort. You build it by placing brick after brick with care, purpose, and consistency. And that only happens when you stop majoring in minor things and start giving your energy to the things that truly matter. One of the most powerful forces shaping your future is the environment you choose. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. And your standards are often determined by the people you spend time with. If you want to think bigger, move faster, and become more, you need to be around people who pull you up, not keep you down. Your associations matter more than you think. If you're constantly surrounded by people who settle, who complain, who coast through life without a plan, eventually their habits become yours. Even if you've got ambition, it can be worn down by the weight of low expectations. Success is not just about discipline. It's also about exposure. When you expose yourself to people who dream bigger, build faster, speak with clarity, and think with precision, something inside you wakes up. You start to see that there's more out there than what you've accepted. You realize that the limits you've been living with are often borrowed. Borrowed from your neighborhood, your family, your coworkers, your old circle. And once you realize that those limits were never truly yours, you can start replacing them with beliefs that serve you instead of shrink you. Environment isn't just about location. It's about the conversations you're in. It's about the mindset you're breathing in every day. When you're around people who are always asking small questions, it keeps your world small. But when you get around people who ask big questions, questions like, how can I multiply my impact? How can I build something that lasts? How can I become a person of value? Your own thinking begins to stretch, and a stretched mind rarely goes back to its original shape. Sometimes all it takes to elevate your thinking is one good conversation, one afternoon with someone who's a few steps ahead, one dinner where you're not the teacher but the student, one meeting where someone challenges your assumptions, not to tear you down, but to help you rise. If you always feel like the smartest, most ambitious person in the room, it might feel comfortable, but it's not helping you grow. Growth often starts where comfort ends, and that means placing yourself in environments that challenge you, environments where you're not the big fish, environments that demand your best thinking. There's something contagious about ambition. It rubs off on you. When you spend time with people who are building, who are moving, who are sharpening their skills, you start to absorb that energy. You start asking better questions. You start raising your standards. You start thinking, if they can do it, so can I. But the opposite is also true. If you spend your time around people who are always negative, always finding problems, always postponing their dreams, that energy sinks into you too. It makes you cautious when you should be bold. It makes you settle when you should be stretching. You don't need to cut everyone out of your life to grow, but you do need to be intentional about who influences you. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people are good for your memories, but not for your momentum. They're part of your history, not your future. And the more serious you get about your growth, the more carefully you have to guard your circle. You need people who speak life into your ideas. People who challenge you to think higher, move quicker, and act smarter. People who see more in you than you see in yourself. The right environment doesn't just support your growth, it accelerates it. When you're surrounded by people with high standards, it's easier to raise your own. When excellence becomes the norm in your circle, mediocrity starts to feel uncomfortable, and that's exactly what you want. You want to be in a space where excuses don't survive, where laziness is out of place, where playing small just isn't acceptable. Because that kind of pressure doesn't crush you, it forms you. It shapes you into someone capable of handling bigger responsibilities, bigger opportunities, and bigger rewards. You might be just one connection away from a breakthrough, one mentor away from clarity, one partnership away from scaling your vision. But you'll never find those relationships if you stay in the same old environments, talking to the same people, having the same conversations. You've got to be willing to step into rooms that stretch you, and sometimes that means humbling yourself. It means being the one who doesn't know all the answers. It means showing up to learn instead of to impress. But that's how growth works. It doesn't ask for pride. It asks for hunger. There's a difference between people who motivate you and people who multiply you. Motivators give you a spark. Multipliers give you a system, a challenge, a new way of seeing things. Multipliers don't let you settle. They don't let you hide behind your excuses. They call you forward, sometimes with uncomfortable truth, but always with your potential in mind. And if you can find those kinds of people, or become that kind of person, you'll start to see just how quickly your life can shift. You'll realize you're not as far behind as you thought. You just needed a better environment to grow in. Big thinking and fast action are powerful, but they don't work without discipline. Discipline is the glue that holds it all together. It's the bridge between your dreams and your results. It's what transforms a good idea into a good life. Everyone wants progress, but few are willing to pay the price. Discipline is that price. It's the willingness to do what you should do, when you should do it, even when you don't feel like it. And that one habit, doing it anyway, can separate you from 90% of the world. Most people are driven by emotion. They wake up and do what they feel like doing. If they feel inspired, they work. If they feel tired, they take the day off. If they feel discouraged, they scroll and delay. That's a problem because feelings are inconsistent. Discipline is about staying consistent even when the feelings fade. It's about having a schedule, a standard, a set of principles that you stick to whether motivation shows up or not. Because, let's be honest, motivation is nice, but it's not dependable. Discipline is. You can read all the books, attend all the seminars, listen to all the right voices, but if you don't have the discipline to apply what you've learned, nothing changes. Knowledge without discipline becomes clutter. Insight without execution becomes regret. A lot of people are full of ideas, full of knowledge, full of plans, but they don't take action consistently enough for it to matter. They wait for the perfect mood, the perfect conditions, the perfect setup, but perfection is an illusion. Progress comes to those who show up, who follow through, who do it messy, do it tired, and do it anyway. Discipline is not just about hard work. It's about smart decisions. It's about choosing what matters most over what feels urgent. It's about saying no to distractions, even when they look fun or relaxing or easy. Discipline is saying yes to your future and no to your comfort. It's building the muscle to delay gratification, to sacrifice now so you can win later. The reason so many people stay stuck is because they are addicted to short-term pleasure at the cost of long-term success. They want the result, but they're not willing to live the routine. Discipline also means doing the right thing when no one is watching. When there's no applause, no recognition, no reward, that's where character is built. That's where transformation happens. Anyone can work hard when it's new and exciting, but can you do the work when it's boring? Can you keep your promises when no one checks in? Can you stick to your plan when it's uncomfortable? These are the questions that shape your results. You don't rise to the level of your vision. You fall to the level of your habits, and your habits are built through daily discipline. People often confuse discipline with punishment, but discipline is not punishment, it's alignment. It's choosing to live in alignment with your goals, your values, your mission. It's about making sure that what you say you want is reflected in how you live. If you say you want to build a business, but spend most of your time scrolling, you're out of alignment. If you say you want to get healthy, but keep skipping the basics, water, rest, movement, you're out of alignment. And when your actions don't match your words, frustration sets in, not because you're incapable, but because you're out of sync with your own intentions. Discipline brings integrity back into your life. It builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, even a small one, your confidence grows. You begin to believe in your own word again. That's powerful, because when you trust yourself, you stop guessing every move. You stop needing external validation. You become someone who follows through, not just for others, but for yourself. And that's the beginning of personal power. Real power doesn't come from titles or money. It comes from alignment, from consistency, from discipline. There's nothing glamorous about doing the work when it's hard. There's no spotlight when you're up early planning your day or staying late fixing your mistakes. But that's where greatness is formed. It's formed in the moments most people skip. The discipline to keep going when progress is slow. The discipline to keep learning when you feel stuck. The discipline to keep serving, giving, showing up, even when you're not sure how it will all play out. Because over time, those disciplined days compound. They build a life you can be proud of. A life that's not just full of effort, but full of results. Discipline is how you turn a vision into reality. It's how you build momentum. It's how you move from average to excellent. When you combine discipline with big thinking and fast action, you don't just change what you do, you change who you are. You become the kind of person who doesn't need motivation to be consistent. You become the kind of person who doesn't need permission to improve. You become the kind of person who follows through, not because it's easy, but because it's right. And that kind of person doesn't just wish for success, they build it so when you step back and look at it all, the message becomes clear. Your life will expand or shrink in direct proportion to how big you allow yourself to think. Every meaningful change begins in the mind, but thought alone is not enough. You must pair it with urgency because the clock is ticking, and waiting for the perfect time only robs you of the time you already have. You must protect your energy and your attention, refusing to waste your best effort on things that make no real difference. You must choose your environment wisely, knowing that your future is shaped by the people you surround yourself with and the conversations you allow into your head. And above all, you must commit to discipline not as a burden, but as a gift, because discipline is what transforms vision into achievement, routine into excellence, and potential into reality. The formula isn't complicated, but it is demanding. Think bigger, move faster, stay focused, stay hungry. Stay true to your standard, and watch what happens when you stop waiting for life to change and start becoming the kind of person who changes it.